Welcome back to Full Court Press and Transition with Coach Q. And I have the honor of having a beautiful Black queen on our podcast today. Going to share her journey and a little bit about Nanyamka Moore, Coach Moore, former college athlete and college coach for the past 8 years, born in Atlanta, Georgia, raised in the Motor City. Started playing basketball at the age of 6, and it's still a big part of her life today. She started out by the source of opportunity of mentorship and ministry for young athletes. She attended the University of Purdue, Fort Wayne on a full scholarship and received a bachelor's degree in mass media and public communications with a minor in media production. Life after college, Coach Moore played semi-pro in Flint for the Flint Marnix organization. She grew in the game and experienced growth with challenging moments and had the time of her life growing in these moments after playing semi-pro while transitioning into what was the next thing in her life. She got into coaching. And so without further ado, the rest of her bio and all the things that she's been into will be highlighted right here on the platform information. But I want to get right into the conversation because I think there's a bunch of nuggets for people to get out of this conversation. And I am so glad and thankful for you allowing me the time and the gift of access to you, Coach Moore, today. And I just want to start off with every question I start off with. Who are you? Who's the essence? And, where did all this come from for you to get to where you're at now? What are some of the things you had success in and some of the things that you've had to overcome in your life? What's your life story?
Well, first, Coach Q, thank you for having me on the program so much. I really appreciate you. And I want to say that I appreciate you as a Black man in this world, especially with all the circumstances that are going on.
Oh, yes.
And you giving back your energy and your time to uplift our people and the community as a whole, regardless if you're Black, white, whatever. I really appreciate you giving back. So my journey has been great. I have been blessed to be able to travel the world, meet people, learn things through the game of basketball. A cousin of mine, he used to coach at the University of Michigan, and actually coached. He was the head coach of University of Detroit, and now was with Rodney Billups of the Denver University program. And he told me one thing when I was younger: the game of basketball is like a relationship. If you treat it well, you nourish it, you flourish it, you do things with it, you take care of it, you work through things with it, it'll take you places in your life that you've never been. And I have been blessed on my journey to use that tool along my way to always build and grow relationships, give back to young people what was always given to me. So many great coaches have been a part of my life. I'm 33 and I've been blessed to have great people who have elevated me spiritually, mentally, physically, on all levels, health-wise, to just be the person that I am today.
Man, that's awesome. So where did all this, you had influences, where did all these influences start? And, you picked up the ball at the age of 6. From there, take me through the steps to Fort Wayne and to, kind of your experiences in playing professional basketball. And then, I know you've coached. Like, walk me through that a little bit as well, because I think the people need to hear your story, your journey.
Well, I grew up in my church setting. It's called the Shrine of the Black Madonna, and that was a church started by, his name is Albert Clegg, a civil rights leader back in the day, and he started the church in Detroit, Michigan. From there, he branched off to Atlanta, Georgia, as well as Houston, Texas, and now we have a large farm, Black-owned farm in South Carolina.
Wow.
So from that upbringing, we were kind of raised like how the Jewish community raised their young people. We lived together. We didn't just live together certain days out the week. We lived together the whole week. We were very knowledgeable. We were taught a lot of spiritual things growing up. It was more so as we did meditation, yoga. We were eating healthy at a young age. So this was back in the 80s. And from that foundation, I started playing basketball. One of the ministers in our church, he had started our basketball program, and I was the only girl who would get out there and play.
Okay.
And I stuck with it. I actually became good, and I eventually went on to play AAU with a team in Pontiac, Michigan, the Pontiac Lady Bears. And that was another great man that my father worked with at General Motors, and his name was Johnny Robertson. And that's where I really took my game to the next level, because I was able to play with girls. And I said, okay, I'm not the only girl in the world that could play. So we got together. That team was really good, and we practiced against boys, but we really learned the game. We really learned the fundamentals. And during that time, AAU was used more for a development for your high school or your middle school team, as opposed to what it has become today. So from there, went on to high school, Ferndale High School in Ferndale, Michigan. Another great man, Logan Lanier, was my high school coach then. He is actually the athletic director and the women's basketball coach at Wright State UMass in Ohio. And he really took me under his tutelage and really took my game to that level to prepare me for college. And he would introduce my family to a lot of the going to camps, because then you would go to college camps at that time. And I went to Xavier's camp. That's really where I wanted to go. I was on their list, and I didn't take my test in time, so it came down to me and one other person who actually had a great career there. From there, I actually went to the Blue Chip Exposure Camp in Kentucky that they used to have there. And that's kind of where I really took my game and was able to get even more scouts and looked at. And that's when I ended up at the school, Indiana Purdue Fort Wayne, which is now called Purdue Fort Wayne. So from there, those are three great men that was in my life. I didn't really have women coaches during that time, but they really empowered me to be strong in who I was, and be confident, and not take things lightly, and don't let anybody else take me lightly. And that's where I really flourished to when I got to college. Had a different coach. Chris Paul was his name, but we had up and downs here and there. It was adversity. My freshman year was pretty good. My sophomore year, I hit a stumble because my god brother, who I grew up with in my church, we were really close. He was murdered that year. And from there, the adversity that I took it upon myself to dedicate that year to him. And this was way before mental health was a big issue. So I didn't really know that at that time I was going through different things. But my college coach, they did eventually have me reach out to a person on campus that I talked to. And it was actually one of my professors who coincidentally lost her brother in a similar fashion. So we was able to connect, and she really flourished me. And that's one of the times I really got to interact with a woman in a teaching capacity that really, took me and really was able to connect with me and help me find ways to tap into my mental. So from there, after college, went on to have another good two years after that. I went on to play semi-pro with the Flint Lady Monarchs, where current Georgia Southern assistant coach was Deontay McChester, was my head coach then, and another great man who really tapped into me, and he encouraged me to not be afraid to go into that limelight. I was playing with people who was in the WNBA, was overseas, people from Michigan State, University of Michigan, Ohio State. These were top BCS players, and I had to shine amongst them, and I did. I eventually went on to be a 5-time player of the week in that conference, and I was our tournament MVP. And that really let me know, like, hey, regardless of how tall you are, how big you are, you could do anything you put your mind to. And from there, I eventually, when he took the job at Claflin and became the head coach, he brought me along to be his graduate assistant at the time, and I eventually went on to be his assistant coach. and we really had a good career there. Signed some very good JUCO All-Americans. That last year we really turned the table, and we was taking that program into another level. And things shifted where I ended up at a school called Robert Wesleyan in New York, and Hamilton College. As the past 2 years, I was at that institution, which is in the top Division III conference in the country. And I was able to see a different side there and learn that more of an academic perspective of the college game. And that's where my journey has led me to where I am now.
So let me, and thank you for sharing, because you dropped some nuggets, and I want to go back and pick up a few of those and kind of expound. You said two things, and one of them is dealing with Black males in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And you made a comment, you said, I've never really dealt with females, I dealt with Black men in the game, and I look at where you are today. And then I want to pick up on the mental health component. But let's start with the Black men. As far as the Black woman, I really believe, and this is my platform, I really believe that the Black man is under fire, and one, in this world, but two,
Mm-hmm.
also in women's basketball. Like, I feel a lot of the stuff that is being said, it might not be towards us, but we're the ones being affected the most in the game. And so just from your point of view, what does the Black male represent, and what does the Black male give that's so vital for a woman, Black, white, blue, green, but mainly for, our minority sisters in this game? What is that you felt that these men gave to you, and that the game gave to you, that Black men are valued, need to be valued in this business?
Well, I definitely think that they were able to instill in me that their presence was there. They were always going to be there. They knew I had a father, a strong father, but they didn't shy away from that, and they didn't shy away from teaching me who they were and instill things in me to make me feel just as important as a young Black woman. And I think that was probably the most important part, was that they were able to uplift me just as much as I was able to see their worth and what they were trying to do and support them in those avenues. A lot of them I still keep in contact. Actually, all of them I keep in contact with still today. And I think in our game, the role of a strong Black man is needed on some of these programs, some of these teams, a lot of them, because if you're thinking about it, we're dealing with young minority girls, whether they're Black, Hispanic,
Mm-hmm.
whatever nationality they might be. A lot of them, more so now than when I was playing, are coming from backgrounds where they don't have a father, they
Mm-hmm.
don't have a male figure in their lives, and when they go and they play for white males, it could be a negative connotation to them, because if they haven't had any contact with any male, it's going to be hard for them to accept that role if it's not someone they're familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, and that's not no knock on any Caucasian coach out there that's male. It's just understanding the dynamic of our community and the impact of our structure that kind of can help you or hurt you. And I think right now we need women in the game,
Mm-hmm.
but we also need to maintain our males in the game that are providing positivity to our young women, and that can be in supportive roles that they can bring other women like me along to help along that journey. So I think that's very key. And the mental health aspect of the game is definitely tremendous. I think it's going to be even more tremendous when we come back out of COVID-19, and you're already talking about student athletes are coming back to campus as early as next week. And are we really tapping into their mental capacity before they come back on these campuses? Are we asking them more so from a student athlete perspective? The NCAA is big on student athlete, but right now it seems like it's more of an athletic reason for them coming back early. Are we tapping into their well-being? How's your home situation? How are you? How are you in general? How are you? Do you feel comfortable coming back? Do you not? Or are we giving these kids an option? I think the mental part especially at the Division I level, when you were constantly on the go. I've probably seen within maybe 6 or 7 months, 3 very well prominent men in my life passed back to back, and didn't have the time to go home or the time to really go through that and grieve. So I struggled. I struggled with not really knowing, was I depressed? Was I not depressed? Is that even the word for it at the time? That word wasn't thrown around as much as it is now, and not knowing how to really cope. And we have a lot of people, young people, who are going to be coming back to campus who might have lost family members, who might still be dealing with family members in certain capacities. How are we going to adjust them tools and put them in positions and give them outlets? We need to make sure they have outlets to talk about it, whether it be a team retreat, just specifically for the health and well-being of the student athletes, or different activities that's going to allow them to talk freely about where they are in their current mental state.
Yes, and it's almost to the point where it's almost like when Magic Johnson came out, he had AIDS, and all the people didn't really know what AIDS was, and I don't want to get next to him. I don't want him to touch me. We're kind of in that state because we don't know what this COVID is doing. We don't know exactly what it's going to do, but I'm really perplexed in the sense of, we are putting ourselves in a situation where it's okay for you to have all these certain regulations and guidelines of walking in the training room, spraying stuff down, but we get onto a court with 15, 20 other people, and we all breathe in the same air. And nobody has a mask on, nobody's playing with the mask on, and you see people playing these pickup games, and I'm just kind of perplexed because I've kind of been a homebody. I've stayed home. I've gone to the store, come back. I've been very cautious, but I'm pretty perplexed on what is going to happen, because at the end of the day, we're jeopardizing, a lot of people and a lot of young people who I'm just kind of perplexed in a sense, and I'm kind of trying to figure out how it's going to go. And I want it to be good, but I feel like it's going to get really bad before it gets good. And we're going to have to transition and understand what that bad is going to look like. And, you bring up a vital point, that mental health, because we got some kids that are scared as all get out to go to school. And then we got some that are ready. So how do you justify and how do you manage that is going to be very key. Moving forward, in coaching, when you were a coach, what was the role? And I'm going to talk to assistant. As an assistant, what was your biggest role to make sure that you gave to your head coach? And I'm kind of jumping in that because I'm putting together an assistant coaching a master class. And I've asked this I had Stan Jones, the associate head coach, long-standing, 26 years with Coach Leonard Hamilton, from college to the NBA and back to college. And I asked him the same question. What are some of the traits, skills, or some of the simple ideas that you would give assistant coaches to support their head coaches in the role that you played as assistant coach working for Dante?
That's a great question. For me, it was knowing who he was and what he was about. I feel like if you aren't in tune or even asking the right questions in those avenues, you're going to kind of be on your own little land, and you need to know what type of what is important to them on a day-to-day basis, and how to get them motivated. Because a lot of people think that they're the master motivator, but sometimes they need to be motivated themselves, and finding ways to tap into that. Also encourage suggestions. I've taken a different approach now, where I'm more so, do you want a listening ear or do you want advice? Because that way you give them the opportunity, to navigate how they want a conversation to go, and not feel bombarded by you as an assistant. It allows them to be free to, maybe I might want advice today, or maybe I just, want you to just listen. being proactive is key. Always trying to find ways to be ahead of them and letting them know, like, hey, coach, you know, I'm already thinking that, or hey, coach, you know, I'm preparing this for you already. What do you think? Proactive is a very good tool to have in your bag. I also probably with Coach D, I had a lot of I think we would talk a lot, and I think in our conversations, I would learn more about the game through our conversations. Because I never thought I would be coaching. I never thought that I would be in this position to where I'm giving back in this capacity. I did think that I would be a servanthood and a mentor to young people. But through talking to him and watching film with him and actually talking and sitting down, and even my head coach that I recently coached with Mahogany Green, having that time to ask, like, hey, would you be okay with us watching film together? Because you can learn from their perspective, and what they're actually looking at. What you might be looking at might be different from them. So having that time to actually do things with them, things that you may not be comfortable with, not being afraid to say, hey, coach, I'm not so much comfortable with this. Can you show me, you know, how you might navigate putting plays together, how you might navigate scouting reports? That way you're able to learn their way, but also incorporate your own way into it as well. But those 3 to 4 things I would probably say are key. And nowadays also, you know, monitoring their well-being just as well as yours, and understanding that head coaches need breaks too. I think a lot of times, not just assistant coaches, but people in general expect them to always have it intact, but anybody can have moments at any time, and just having that right support next to them to help them along those ways, I think are very important tools. He had a couple of deaths during the time that I worked with him, and just being there to support him and just listen to him and hang out with him, even if it's just an hour of sitting in silence, stuff like that, I think are very key to being a good assistant. That's just my perspective. I can't speak for everybody's, but just from my perspective, connecting with the person, and seeing them just as a person as you are, and not just as a head coach.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I appreciate you sharing, because it is important to connect and it be on both ends, both you know. And me being a former coach and me being an assistant, I've been in both positions, and the best success we had was when both were willing to do that and be genuine and authentic in it. And so I appreciate that, and I thank you. We had this big 2 major questions I got for you now, sister.
Okay.
So I appreciate the story, and we sum this all up and we bring it together. And you say, Coach Q, I want you to help me write a book about my life. And what is the title of this book?
I would probably say service. I would probably put it in some avenue of service where you know, I think that sums up my life: a servanthood, servantship, anything that I'm giving of myself, because so many people have given to me, and I think that's a big part, probably a big title for me.
Okay, I got it for you too. I got it. Take your last name. You take your last name, and we call it More Service.
I like that.
More service. You know, and so now we take this best-selling book, More Service, and you kill it out the park, and they come and say, hey, we want to make a movie out of this book. Who is playing you in the movie?
Who is playing me? That's I would probably tap into a outside realm. I would probably want Lauryn Hill to play me.
Oh, that's a good one.
I would probably want
that's
L
probably the
Boogie
best
to come and play me.
That's probably the best answer I heard. Can you sing too?
I can't sing that well. I'm learning the acoustic guitar. We might compare in that area, but singing, she can show that singing quality very well for me.
Yeah. I got mine over here. I've been dealing with that for the last 6 years, and so I promised that I was gonna work on it this year hard on my acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
So I feel you on that. Well, Coach,
Yeah,
thank you
buddy.
so much. It's been a pleasure. I appreciate the time. I appreciate your beauty of yourself, the strong Black woman you are. We need you. We need you to keep being successful in all your endeavors. Thank you for all that you've given and all the service that you've given to these young women. And I just appreciate your time and you allowing me, again, the gift of access to tell your story, not only to me, but to all the listeners. Coach, appreciate you, and we love you so much. For the next time on Full Court Press and Transition with Coach Q, we'll be back. Live, love, and lead.